Welcome to the Organizational Maneuverability Radio Show, Defying Gravity so your team can soar at altitude, with host Marshall Goldsmith, Executive Coach Randy Swaim.
Randy, what you mentioned to me in one of our previous conversations is where the term Vuca actually comes from. And you mentioned to me that it comes from the aviation space.
Yeah, and what it is, it really comes from the fighter pilot background. And the reason that I say that is when you're in a fighter, and of course, as you know, most of my fighter background is in F-4 Phantoms. That was a number of years ago, no two ways about it. But they're when you're going into combat, and this is true of basically any combat, but even more so in fighters, guess what? When you're going into a situation or when you're kind of going on a mission of something, not everything is rote academic. You have factors that can sneak onto the scene that you never predicted, you never expected, and kind of thing. And you have to be aware, and this brings the neuroscience, the mental processing to be, you have to be aware on what's going to happen, because guess what? A lot of those factors that can come on scene are not just predictable. They're not just what you would expect. They may be very different, and the potential results that you were planning on may be based on the fact that the factors are very different than what you thought. And you got to be aware of that. And guess what? When you're leading a team in a VUCA environment or a challenging or unpredictable environment on a mission that you're trying to do with your company team and the people you're leading, you have to be aware of how you can really do that and how you're going to be able to truly do that. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Just not everything is just rote academic. And now there may be certain aspects of academic, but guess what? The application of it can change a little bit as you're in a changing environment. And it doesn't mean that just the facts change, but no, just the factors, the aspects that are coming on scene, the factors that are trying to resist what you're trying to accomplish and all that could be changing a little bit. And you just got to be aware of how you're going to really be successful in that. And that's a big thing that leaders today need to be aware of.
So Randy, in this article and also in your book, Bringing Freedom to Potential,
yes.
You speak about overcoming and undergoing. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference?
Yes, and thank you for asking that, because it's very key. And as you know, I sort of put that into this blog. And but you got to realize that when you're talking about going into an unpredictable VUCA environment or whatever, kind of thing, you got to be aware that there are times, and one of the aspects is there are some times where you have to overcome. And most of the people in the planet, in our societies today, think of that alone. Well, my job is just overcome this. Well, guess what? You may not be able to, with the situation that's there, with the factors that are there, with the strength that they have there as the enemy or as the thing that is resisting your success on it and everything. Guess what? You may not be able to overcome that. But here's the thing, the big difference between the overcoming and the undergoing. The overcoming is when you're kind of fighting, saying, okay, let's just do this, let's get it going, let's do it, and overcome the results and achieve what you're wanting to do. But there are also other times when a factor comes on scene that when you are very much aware of your team and perhaps of you, and your company, there are times when you realize that the factors that are coming on that are resisting us, you know what? Right now, we can't really win that. And so there's a time where you undergo. And when you talk about undergoing, it's not just fighting and overcoming, but it's, you know what, sometimes I can go down low here and go beyond that, or I can go around it just a little bit or whatever, kind of thing. I can kind of undergo it a little bit where I'm not just kind of fighting through it to just, make that happen and everything. But what I'm doing is I'm minimizing its effect on me and my team where, you know what, we can get to the point where we can start overcoming going down the road. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's a key difference between those two, the aspect of overcoming and the aspect of undergoing. With some of the factors that come on scene, there are some factors that you need to undergo. And that kind of means, okay, don't let that stop us, but don't think that we just gotta push through that. Maybe not. You maybe just a little bit of an adjustment.
Randy, is undergoing harder, or why do most leaders just focus on overcoming?
And undergoing, it in some respects it's not nearly as hard, but I will say this, the thing that makes it hard is because managers don't ever even think about that. Leaders don't even think about it as an option. Because here's the thing, if this factor is coming on is trying to resist us, you know what? If my team just goes around it and keeps going, oh wow, yeah, yeah, we're going, kind of thing. And that's an aspect of it. But but one of the things that I will say is, and this is sort of a neuroscience aspect, but the reason that so many leaders exclusively focus on overcoming is because that's the way that people all over our society think. That's all they think about. That, if you get these factors coming in seen here, your job is to just push through that and make them go, you know, beat them up and, go through that and just, get through here and all this kind of stuff. And you know what? There are times where that's not the best opportunity for you. And so that's what, and part of the reason for it, as you kind of asked about, part of the reason for it is because when you think about the academic aspects of it, that's all anybody thinks about. And if you think about how with the neuroscience, how your academic, platform back here that's not really thinking and processing is simply there. You're just going back to rote things but you know what? If that's all you're doing for no real reason other than just, well, that's what I'm used to, you're not getting the job done. Very often, if you look at it and you have a true understanding of the undergoing, guess what? A lot of times you can find out that for this situation, this is the undergoing part of it. Boy, you know what? I think that can get us there. And you go, and it's the mental processing that lets that happen. And if you can get a sense on, okay, you know what, for the undergoing, here's what we need to do, and here's how we need to do it. You know what? Yeah, let's do that. And you get by the factors here to where you're back to the point where you're still going up, kind of thing and everything. So it's just a key aspect of you when you look at this aspect of overcoming versus undergoing.
That makes perfect sense to me, Randy. Can you maybe share a real life example of where undergoing helped a team grow?
Well, I tell you what, there's a number of times there, but I will say that one of the it sounds kind of wild, but one of the times that it was sort of my growth where I had undergo to a certain extent, but um, originally I was in a medical field, kind of thing and stuff until I took my first flight in an airplane. And I went, wow, wow, you know. And what I did is I said, you know what? and what I realized is my real focus of my objective in life was I wanted to become an Air Force fighter pilot kind of thing. And so uh, I went back to college, I went through ROTC, I got commissioned, and and but what was amazing, it was right at the end of the uh, Gulf War, so all of the pilots slots were really dropping down, and they weren't really prevalent there. And so I was basically uh, asked, and I said, okay, I'll do that. And I asked to be just a navigator, to be a navigator slot. And you know, if my whole thing was to just, you know, fight with people and threaten people and that wouldn't have gotten it done. But I said, okay, I'll do that. And but what was amazing is this was a slight degree of undergoing. But when I got commissioned and I went to navigator training in the Air Force, uh, what was amazing is it blew my mind that because of the way people interacted with me and experienced me, and even the officers there, they, uh, you know, a lot of people were, when they got their assignments to go, so many of them went with big, uh, uh, you know, transport airplanes or big bombers or whatever, like that kind of thing. And it was going down, and nobody was getting fighters. And I'm sitting there going, oh boy, okay, you know, kind of thing. But they got down to my name on the list. And when he mentioned Lieutenant Swaim, I said, yes, sir. And he lost his place on the sheet. And he was going, and inside me, I'm going, come on, come on. But then he found my spot and he goes, Lieutenant Swaim, F4 fighter EWO, electronic warfare officer. And I went, oh, yes. And everybody was coming up to me after that in the class and applauding me and just complimenting me for what I got. But I went to F4 qualification training at George Air Force Base, and what blew me away, um, not only did I uh, do well there, but on graduation, I was given the Outstanding Wizzo Graduate Award, and because of that, I was handpicked for for one of the top squadrons in the Air Force. And in fact, you may remember the general name Richard B. Myers, who was the first Air Force chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff back quite some time ago and everything. But uh, he was the squadron commander when I got right after I got there, and I got a chance to fly with him more than you can more than you can imagine. But I also learned a lot about leadership from him, not from anything that he ever told me, but from what I observed him in how he led people, how he connected with people, and things of that nature. And so the bottom line is, guess what? When I didn't get a pilot slot, and of course in the Air Force F4s, you had flight controls in the back seat. So guess what? About 35% of my flight time in the F4, I was the sole manipulator controls. And I got to do aerobatics and, you know, all that kind of stuff on it. It was blast. But when I think of the fact that I was able to fly with, and I worked with uh, uh, you know, Richard B. Myers and stuff. When I heard he was chosen, it was like, wow. But you know what? Because I didn't go to pilot training, you know, a lot of people would say, well, I need to go do pilots. I need to go, you know, or whatever like this. That would be sort of that overcoming aspect of it and stuff. But what I did is sort of, in this case, that sort of undergo there, it was like, okay, well, this is what they want. I'm going to go do this. And yeah, I'm going to do this, and it got me to where I wanted to, and it gave me an incredible career in flying jet airplanes, and it gave as a pilot, and it got me into an incredible career of relating to the military for about 2.5 decades. But I also spent the last 26 years teaching and training and certifying jet pilots and stuff. And in addition to that, becoming a coach and realizing how, in an operational sense, you truly bring what we're talking about here with these aspects of leadership and development in a VUCA unchanged, challenging environment, but also uh, developing that in other people to get them better and stuff. So it's just when you talk about the undergo, a lot of my life's journey was built with an undergo mindset. Because I didn't get upset when I didn't get a pilot slot. I didn't. Um, uh, I just kept working on the dream and the vision, and it went to places that still blows my mind. So it's just, when people think about it, the aspect of this undergo, you got to understand if all your mind is doing is saying, well, it won't let me do it. It won't, if that's your entire mindset, you're not being professional and you do not have good situational awareness. And so it's just something that is amazing. Keep in mind that sometimes when you need to undergo with your team in a challenging situation that they're on, sometimes that little bit undergo can get you even further where you want to go than fighting with them to kind of grow and that kind of thing. And so there are times when the go there is sometimes even better than the overcoming. And one of the things that I would tell leaders, do you and your team have true clarity on the situational awareness on that?
Randy, what you say, I deeply respect and I really take it seriously because you have achieved so much in your life and your career
Thank
that,
you.
if you say that, there must be a point. Also related to your concept of organizational maneuverability. So does
Yeah.
that concept include both aspects, the overcoming and the undergoing?
In essence, it does because a lot of people don't realize. I used to have years ago. I used to have a a course, an online course, but it was early in my efforts and all that kind of stuff, and there weren't a lot of people that enrolled in it or anything like that kind of stuff. But it's a concept that is approved for me out of Washington D.C. Kind of stuff. It's my concept of organizational maneuverability, but it is truly aligned with exactly what you're talking about and asking about. Because guess what? When you're talking about organizational maneuverability, the reason that I brought it up, and again, it's a concept that is approved for me outside of Washington, D.C., but organizational maneuverability is trying to be successful and working with your team to be successful in a VUCA environment where it's not all just predictable. And guess what? It's very true for being successful in that. Because guess what? If you spend your entire focus and time on trying to control and overcome and all this kind of stuff, guess what? That can be holding your time up. It may be delaying you some. Whereas a lot of times, if you undergo and you go and get around, and you can end up further down the stream, maybe quicker than you were. And so the bottom line is it's very aligned with my vision and my concept of organization and maneuverability. And it's because it's like I say, it's something that most people today are focused on just rote academic things. Well, guess what? That's not where everything is because not every aspect is aligned with rote academic things. Factors are coming on scene that are different than we expected.
So Randy, if there is one thing that I would want as a takeaway from what we spoke about today, what would be the one thing to remember for
Well, I tell
leaders?
you, I'll tell you what, like you just asked about with the overcoming and the undergoing, uh, most people don't even think about those two. And so, what I recommend for people is, and I'll just throw out two questions that are kind of aligned with kind of what you're asking. But the first question basically is in your situation, what do you need to do to enhance your awareness of those two and the aware to enhance the real value of those two and have a sense of when that's going to be applicable. But the other thing that I kind of throw out to people that are looking at leadership out there is, what do you need to do differently in connecting with your team members to
Mm.
be able to be remotely and truly successful, even in this VUCA unpredictable situation and everything. And that's a mindset that a lot of people don't have. And when you're talking about undergoing, sometimes if you have a 5 or 8 minute conversation with your people, all of a sudden, and you probably know this also, but a lot of people that are think that they're leaders out there, but not as great as one would think. They think that their whole job is to just tell their people what to do. And and if that's your only aspect of it, you're not actually getting the job done, really. You're going with some rote academic thing, but the bottom line is, if you can understand the right questions to ask your people, and I don't mean a lot of people in today's world ask their people questions, but you can tell in the question and the way they asked it that all they're trying to do is to get you to answer the one that I believe in, kind of thing. And you just shut your brain off and just give me the answer that I like, kind of thing. And if that's your situation, you're not being a leader. And uh, if you get a truly good synergistic conversation and chat with a couple of your team members, and all of a sudden you may come up with something that was a little bit different than you thought, but makes them go, oh, yeah. But you know what? They may come up with something that even you didn't think about that makes you go, you know what? That's a good point. Let's talk about that a little bit, kind of thing. And that's synergy. That's true teamwork. And when you're talking about true leadership, it's not just about you dictating and all that kind of stuff. It's not you just trying to call attention to yourself or whatever, but it's truly bringing your neuroscience processing into play, where you're connecting with your people in such a way that you are truly a synergistic team. And if they're all just going with rote academic things, then yeah, you need to ask some good questions. Get them, understanding how their thinking is maybe holding them short, but also understanding how your thinking may be holding you short because you're just going with rote academic things and stuff. And if you do that, you're just going back here in the back of your brain where you're comfortable. And but the mental processing, when you can understand the true value of the situation and the true possibilities of, like you said, the overcoming or the undergoing, and understanding how you're really going to make that happen, uh, is very key, and that's a the key aspect. And as you said correctly too before, that I included some of this uh, uh, in my autobiography on Amazon, that Bring Freedom to Potential. And that's a key aspect of how you bring freedom to potential, and not just dictatorial and playing games with it and everything. And of course, that's on the Hollywood movie documentary that they made also. But it kind of brings some of that into play on that. But it's huge, but it's also very aligned with, as you were asking about, the difference between the overcoming and the undergoing. There are times when one of those is more important, but guess what? Don't make it an academic thing. Truly understand.
Thank you, Randy. I can only recommend to buy and read your book. There is so many examples that showcase how you applied both principles, and especially the everything that you explained today that led to your success. And thank you so much for your time. I look forward to our next one.
Sounds good. Well, I'll tell you what, my friend, it's always a pleasure to be on here and talking with you. I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Randy. Take care.
Okay. Okay. Take care.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.